I hope everybody sees the slide here. Thank you for the introduction, Sue. And as Sue said, I'm an attorney at the FTC's Cleveland office. Today, I'm going to talk about coronavirus-related scams. That have affected small businesses. Two things to remember. Small businesses are consumers too, and scammers do not discriminate when it comes to taking your money and your information. So my goal this morning is for you to pick up something new, or hopefully just as a refresher about something that you already know, so that you can continue to protect yourselves and your businesses. I will share data and statistics from the FTC's consumer reporting database. And I'll use that information to set up my presentation of specific scams, what the FTC has done to address them, and what small businesses can do to avoid them, which includes recognizing some of the common red flags of these scams. My presentation is also going to serve as a sort of a preview for the other useful presentations that you will hear this morning from experts right here in our very own community. As Sue said, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box. But if you do not think of questions today, you can also feel free to email me if you have any questions later on. So let's start with data from 2020. This is data from the 2020 Consumer Sentinel Network. And every year we publish data about the consumer reports that we receive. And these are reports from individual consumers as well as small businesses that have been affected by scams and other schemes. The Consumer Sentinel Network is the FTC's database for consumer reports about fraud or identity theft. The reports themselves are confidential. They come from various sources. They can come from our partners, law enforcement partners, many of whom are here going to be presenting this morning. They also come from other law enforcement agencies. And these are confidential reports, meaning that law enforcement alone can use them. And they can use this to track scammers down, investigate, and file cases later on. But we also use these consumer reports to figure out what the trending issues are. What are the scams and schemes affecting consumers and small businesses today? And so that we can create a consumer alert or a business alert that will be useful and timely for the audience. So let's look at this data here. Last year, we received 4.7 million reports. And that is up 38%, a whopping 38% from 2009, when we received 3.4 million reports. As you can see here in the top right, those are the top three categories of reports that we received. And every one of those we will be talking today about. Someone in this panel will be addressing that, and hopefully you will find something helpful from those presentations. There were 2.2 million fraud reports last year. 34% of that reported a loss. And that again is up from 2019. As you can see, up 22% in the terms of the number of reports, and that was from 1.8 million in 2019 up to 2.2 million. And the percentage of reports where there was a loss also went up. Over a quarter of the reports, it is up from 26% from 2019. And finally, the total fraud losses from last year was $3.3 billion. That is up another third of a percent, 32%. And you can just imagine that $3.3 billion could have been used by consumers and small businesses for other purposes. That could be money that could have been money that have gone to your businesses, but instead it fell it went to these scammers who have victimized a lot of consumers and a lot of small businesses. A couple more things I want to share from the 2020 data that are particularly relevant for small businesses. First, business imposter scams, or scams in which someone impersonates your business, increased by 44% in terms of what the reports that we received. It went from 107,000 from 2019 to 155,000 reports just last year. Second, there's been a surge in identity theft related to government documents and benefits. That went up over 1,000%. It went up from 23,000 reports in 2019 to over 406,000 reports just last year. And this increase was primarily driven by the fraudulent use of other people's names and information to apply for unemployment benefits. But now you think about that, why does that matter to a small business owner? And you'll find that out today. A colleague of ours will be presenting, Mickey Ford from the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services. And he will be talking about this kind of scams and why it's important for you as a small business who has employees, right? So that's a preview for one of the next presentations. Now, let me drill into the data that's related to COVID. This is data from January 1, 2020 up to April 19 of this year. These are reports that mention COVID, stimulus, N95, and other COVID-related terms. Let's first look at the line graph in the top right here. Don't worry about looking at all those words there. I'll be talking about them. But just if you look at the graph here, top right, you will see that there are spikes of reports that we received. You can see the first spike began in January, February, March of 2020. What happened then, right? We all know what happened then. This was the period when COVID really started picking up in the news. COVID concerns was at their highest and in the news really 24/7. You might remember when it seemed like everyone was looking for tissue paper or Clorox or Lysol products. Also around this period is when Congress authorized economic relief. There was a package that included the $1,200 stimulus checks that went to families. There was also the creation of the Payment Protection Program to assist small businesses. So that's one of the spikes. The next two spikes, that really happened in December last year and then again in March of this year. What happened then? Well, in December, Congress authorized the additional $600 of stimulus checks. And in March this year, Congress authorized an additional $1,400 of stimulus checks. And in between that period, Congress also authorized the extension of the PPP program for loans to small businesses. And you will hear more about these PPP loan scams and idle loan scams. I'll talk about it a little bit here, but you will hear it more from our SBA expert, Naya Duncan will be talking about that in a little bit. Well, when I'm talking about this, I know it sounds a little bit oversimplified, but the point is this: scammers follow current events and the news. Okay, so the first tip or reminder for you is this: whenever there is a major event, whether that's a pandemic, a natural disaster, or economic relief being offered to families or small businesses, you can be sure that scammers are already working to make sure that they capitalize on these events. It may be just as easy for them to switch from one scam to another, and they will follow the news, they will follow the current events because that's what people are worried about. that's where the demand for a product or service might be. So they will be there. So the number one thing is just beware of that. Now let's look at the chart to the top left here. This shows the 4 types of reports that we received in the last 15 to 16 months. For today, I will focus on 2 reports, two report types. I'll focus on the fraud type. Basically, the fraud category includes reports about various scams like online shopping scams, travel, vacation, and timeshare scams, fake check scams, prize and lottery scams, and many others. I will be touching on the online shopping scams, but as you can imagine, well, it might not be obvious, but last year we received a lot of complaints and reports about travel, vacation, and timeshare scams. And at first blush, I asked myself, why? Nobody's traveling. But basically that data is tied to people canceling their reservations, and then there are issues with not getting the refunds because of the cancellations. The next report type I'll focus on will be do not call reports. And basically these are reports that involve unwanted telephone calls to phone numbers that are listed in the do not call registry, as well as illegal robocalls. As I mentioned earlier, I want to use this data as a starting point for discussing specific scams and what you can do to avoid them. So let's start with a do not call type here. And I just want to quickly point out here, this line graph on the right, really, if you can see the spikes are really very similar to what I just showed you earlier, right? Again, scammers follow the news and they will move fast to capitalize on those events. And here, it doesn't, there's no change, right? The way that they contacted consumers by phone, that also spiked as current events happened. Now I will focus on this pie chart here. This is a breakdown of the method of contacting consumers and small businesses based on the do not call reports that we received. As you can see, scammers prefer robocalls. And why is that? Robocalls are cheap, they are easy, and they are effective. There are some technologies that are available now that can help you deal with illegal robocalls. You might start by contacting your service provider. They might have suggestions, and they might even have services included in their plans that you can take advantage of. Usually when I talk to consumers about unwanted calls, I tell them, don't pick up the phone if you are not, if you don't recognize the caller. Now for small businesses, I realize that's a very tough situation, because if you have a customer or a potential customer, you want to make sure that someone is answering, right? You do not want to lose that business. This brings me to illegal robocalls. Let's, during the pandemic, scammers found a way to target small businesses who are really hurting for business, right? So let's listen to one of these examples of a robocall that the FTC captured.
Hello, please do not hang up. If you are a small business that has been affected by the coronavirus, press 1 to ensure your Google listing is correctly displaying. Otherwise, customers may not find you online during this time. Press 1 to ensure your Google listing is displaying properly during this coronavirus outbreak. Press 2 to be removed from our list.
So this robocall says you should press 1 to make sure your Google listing is being properly seen during the pandemic. And you want that, right? If you're a business, you want to make sure that your customers, your potential customers, know where you are and how they can contact you. It also says that you want to press 2 if you want to be removed from their call list. The FTC, we've seen this kind of scams before. And this is definitely, it's not a shock for you to find out that this robocall is not from Google. If you press 1, you'll be connected to a telemarketer who will simply try to sell you products for a substantial fee. And that product or service you may not even need. So for example, if you do have a Google listing, you as a small business, you have the capacity to look at that, right? If you want to track your Google listing, how many clicks you're getting, Google, that service allows you to track that, to do it for yourself. Now, if you press 2, you shouldn't assume that you'll be taken off their call list. Really, as we've seen at the FTC, if you press 2, you're just likely to have your phone number included in a lead generation list, and you'll just end up receiving even more of these unwanted robocalls. So the question is, what should you do? Right, so I guess I want to preview that these tips and reminders, these are really just common sense reminders that you already know. I think it's worth sharing again. If not for you, for others that you may know. Like Sue said, we hope that you will share the information that you get from these presentations today. So what should you do? Hang up, right? You got to hang up. You pick that phone up if you think that you want to pick up the phone because it might be a customer, and then you hear a pre-recorded message. That's a robocall. Most robocalls are illegal, so you want to hang up. Don't press any numbers. Block the number. Again, you can do that through your phone. You can also get some apps that might help block unwanted calls. And finally, well, second to the last is you want to let us know about this. As I said before, these reports that we receive from consumers and businesses, we use them not only for our law enforcement purposes, but we also use those for our consumer and small business outreach. If there is a new scam that's going around, we want to hear about it so that we can give alerts to consumers and small businesses. And finally, and I think this might be, one of the most important things that you should be doing or keeping in mind is you want to train your employees of what to do when they receive these kinds of unwanted calls, right? It's great that you yourself as the owner know how to deal with them, but it just takes that one part, one chink in the chain when these scammers can get through and really adversely affect you and harm your business. So robocalling is a favorite way for scammers to bait consumers. Like I said, it's cheap, easy, and effective. But that is by no means the only way scammers try to get you. There's also fake emails and phishing emails. So let me touch on that really quickly here. Fake or phishing emails are designed to get you to do various things, and none of them leads to anything good. I say here emails or texts, but really scammers can also send these fake and phishing messages, through text messaging, through social media, and other messaging platforms. And we've seen this in consumer reports and business reports that we've received. Scammers are very innovative. They go where their victims, where they think their victims are. So on this slide, I want to preview some of the scams you'll hear about this morning. Many of these scams start with fake or phishing emails. First one, fake or phishing emails, they are designed to get your money. For example, by tricking you into paying for something you didn't order. You'll hear about fake order or fake invoice scams from Sheryl Harris from the county's Department of Consumer Affairs. They are designed to get your information, which can then lead to identity theft. Danielle Murphy from the Ohio Attorney General's office will be talking about this in a little bit. What it is and what are the steps that you can do to try to mitigate it if you are a victim, and also the steps you can take to avoid becoming a victim. These phishing and fake emails, they are also designed to get you to download malware to your PC, which can then lead to ransomware, the ransomware scam, the business email compromise or BEC scams. Again, as Sue said, she will be talking about this on the next presentation. Finally, these fake and phishing emails, they are designed to get you to call the scammers. And sometimes they want to get remote access to your PC. And then once these scammers get remote access to your PC, they will show you all sorts of things that are supposedly wrong with your computer. That can be viruses or hackers. Then, lo and behold, they will sell you the fix, right? They will sell you the repairs that you need. This is called a tech support scam, and it targets consumers. It targets small businesses alike. And we've seen this kinds of report for many, many years now. And it seems like there was an uptick during the pandemic because people are working from home. People are working remotely on their computers. The FTC has been cracking down on tech support scammers for years. And we've been able to return millions of dollars back to victims. I myself have investigated and filed 2 separate cases against a number of these tech support scammers, including one that we filed in federal court here in Cleveland. Now, on the next couple of slides, I want to show some examples of these fake and phishing emails, which we have seen that has become prevalent during the pandemic. And I also want to take this opportunity to point out or highlight some of the common red flags of these phishing and fake emails. The first example is an email from a scammer who claims to be Stella Chungum. You see there, right? Claims to be from the World Health Organization. In this email, it appears that she is offering COVID-related information and safety measures. Now, like any good business owner, you may be interested in that information. You want to protect yourself, you want to protect your employees. If you do an internet search of this person's name, you may even really find out that that person exists, and that person is associated with the World Health Organization. For example, you might see websites or even the LinkedIn page for this person, and it's a real person. I actually searched it and saw that it's a real person who is associated with the WHO. But doing an internet search of a person or a company can be very useful, but it shouldn't be the only thing you do as part of your due diligence. Let's look at some of the red flags in this email. The first one here that I just put up, one common red flag is an email from an unknown or unverified sender. The quickest way for you to see who is really contacting you is to click on the name of the sender to see the full email address. So in this example, if you click on that World Health Organization from the top, it should disclose or show you the full email address. If that email address does not use the email, the agency's email domain, then that's a big red flag. So for example, my email address, the email domain is @ftc.gov. For the WHO, it's @who.int, right? So now if If you click on that sender's name and the email domain is not who.int, you know, that's a big red flag. Another red flag here is the presence of typos and grammatical errors. You can see here from the subject line, right? Safety is misspelled. Coronavirus, I think, is typically spelled as one word, but you can also see some grammatical issues here, right? The first paragraph here, safety measures regarding the spreading of coronavirus. That's kind of an odd way to say it. That is a red flag sometimes of scams. The next paragraph there, it says symptoms, common symptoms, and then it looks like they misspelled or yeah, they misspelled cough and shortness. So those again are, those errors, those kinds of errors are red flags of a problematic email. That should give you pause. And then finally, and probably the biggest one is, another red flag is unknown or unverified links or downloads. I can assure you, if you click on that unknown link or download, you know, safety is going to be the last thing that you're going to be experiencing. So again, number one rule there is if you don't know who sent you this link, don't click on it. And how can this email, an email like this, hurt you? Like I just said, if you click on that blue download box, it might install malware on your computer. You know, at this point, you want to think about ransomware, or it might send you to a phony website where it might ask you for some information, personal information, or valuable information. Think identity theft, right? That's what's going to happen. Let's talk about this next example here. This is a fake email from a scammer pretending to be from a company that sells Norton computer security products. It's claiming that a $300 service is going to be renewed, and you have to call them within 1 business day in front of your computer. Now, during the pandemic, many consumers and businesses working from home, we've seen that there was an uptick of this kind of emails, these fake and phishing emails. And again, you know, scammers want to capitalize on that, capitalize on what's happening. They go where they think their victims are. In March, we issued a public alert about this kinds of emails, and because of and that's really largely because of the consumer and small business reports we received. Spoiler alert here, this email is not from Norton, it's from a scammer. So let's look at a couple of red flags here. First, scammers like to create a false sense of urgency. They want you to act quickly, so it's less likely that you'll catch on to their tricks. Here, they create that false sense of urgency by telling you, hey, you are going to be charged this big amount of money unless you call us, and you have to call us within 1 business day. I mean, if you think about that as a small business owner, you know, why are you rushing folks to do that, right? If it's really important, you know, your customer will know that. Here, another red flag is scammers like to create a way or a means to control you. And here we see that when they tell you that they want you to be in front of your computer when you call them. And again, if you think about that, what is the purpose of being in front of your computer if the only issue here is whether you want to renew a service or not, right? You can handle that over the phone. Well, here, this is a big red flag because, you know, scammers will want, eventually will want to get access to your computer. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that really leads you into the tech support scam realm. So some tips and reminders, what you should do. A lot of this, again, is common sense. You want to stop and ask yourself these questions. You want to avoid that false sense of urgency. Why would an international health agency contact you out of the blue? Ask yourself that. Now the question is, do you even own the product that the email claims needs to be renewed? Mentioned this earlier as well. Don't click on links or dial the phone number in the email. Now, if you decide that you do want to, call back, you should independently find a phone number for that company. You can just do a simple open search, internet, online search, and you should be able to find a phone number for that company. Don't give remote access to your computer. We already know what this leads to. I will say that legitimate companies will ask you for remote access to your computer. But that shouldn't be a problem if in the first place you already have verified that you are dealing with a legitimate company. And so the work comes in the front, making sure that you're dealing with a person or the company that you think you're dealing with. And so then that makes the rest of your experience positive. And finally, train your employees. Where I work, we do this really on a daily basis. There are some sort of, test emails that go around. They look like fake and phishing emails, and we are being, it's just practice, right? It takes a lot of practice to recognize if an email is fake, if it's a phishing email. But recognizing that these kinds of emails exist, that's step one, right? And then you can do more of your due diligence before you click on links and other things that might be on the email itself. Right, so going back to the data, both the emails that we just saw that I talked about, we can categorize that as, having elements of an imposter scam, right? One email pretending like it's coming from the World Health Organization, another email pretending like it's coming from Norton Security. Going back to our data here, you'll see in the bottom right, imposters, that's the top category of reports that we received for the do not call report type. And I want to talk a little bit more about this. Imposter scams, they target individual consumers. They also target small businesses. We are all, like I said, scammers do not discriminate in terms of who they want to victimize. I want to talk about an example here from an FTC case. This is an example of a business, it's called Ponte Investments, that operated a government imposter scam during a time when small businesses were already struggling and needed help. What did Ponte do? Let's find out. Ponte used the business name SBA loan program. During the early days of the pandemic, Ponte called small businesses and it claimed to represent the SBA. And it solicited PPP loan applications. Sometimes the company followed up the calls with emails, which made the similar claims, right? That they are SBA approved and they're also soliciting applications. The company also solicited loan applications through its website, sbaloanprogram.com, which we'll see here in the next slide. Question is here, what's the harm, right? As far as we know, the businesses that send applications, didn't really pay money to send the applications. But what's the harm? Well, the harm is many of these businesses that applied, and we think it's thousands of businesses that sent applications to this company. They didn't get any PPP loans, right? They might have really been desperate for these loans, but they didn't get it because Ponte is not an SBA approved lender. So even though they didn't lose money from their own pockets, they lost out on the loans that they could have received. Sort of adding salt to the injury is Ponte kept on soliciting these applications even after the PPP loan funding had already dried up. So here is a screenshot from Ponte's website. When you visited sbaloanprogram.com, this screen would immediately pop up. The biggest thing I want to point out here is they're claiming to be a direct lender for the PPP loan program. And then if you if you went down on that screen, you'll see there's a link that says apply here. If you clicked on that link, this pop-up will show. It's the application will pop up, the application form will pop up, and part of that, again, says this claim, right? We are the direct lender for the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, it's great that the FTC was able to act quickly to stop this scam. We filed a lawsuit in federal court in Rhode Island back in April of last year, and the defendants were charged with 2 counts of deceptive advertising, and the case eventually settled. The settlement prohibits the defendants from misrepresenting that they are affiliated with the SBA or the federal government, and that they are authorized to accept SBA loan applications. They are also prohibited from using SBA loan program as a trade name or a website name. Unfortunately, companies like Ponte is not, they weren't alone. In addition to this lawsuit, the FTC has sent 8 warning letters together with the SBA to other companies that made similar claims. The warning letters advise the companies that their conduct is probably illegal and unlawful, and they face serious consequences, such as a federal lawsuit, unless they stop immediately. These companies use names and websites like SBA Direct, SBA DisasterLoan.com, USAFunding.com. And so this morning, you'll hear more about this kind of imposter scam, as I had mentioned earlier, from Naya Duncan, who works at the SBA. And I just wanted to highlight this one case for you all. Imposter scam. So again, some tips here. You want to stop and ask yourself, will a government agency ask me out of the blue for money or personal information? I've mentioned this a couple of times already, but if you receive a contact just out of the blue, that in itself is a red flag. Whether it's from a government agency, whether it's from another company, or whether it's a prince from Nigeria that has money that you can take advantage of. These contacts, these emails, phone calls that come out of the blue, those are all red flags. Don't trust caller ID. It can be spoofed, right? So the caller ID might say it's coming from Fil de Banate at the FTC, but it could very well be a person from overseas trying to scam you. If you don't recognize the caller, just let it go to voicemail. The caller will leave you a message if it's important. Now, I know, as I mentioned earlier, that's sort of a tough situation for small businesses, but really it's a call that you need to make. If you recognize it as a number that your customer uses, you should pick it up. But again, you just have to be wary about picking up calls from unknown callers. You want to also verify who you're dealing with using trusted sources. So for example, you can check the BBB website for the company to see if there are any complaints against that company. If you trust a company and you do have to pay for a product or a service, use a credit card if possible. If a company says you have to pay using a gift card, a cash reload card, money wire, cryptocurrency, you should consider that a red flag. One of the good things about using a credit card is you have some protections, one of which is a chargeback. If it turns out the transaction was fraudulent, you can go to your bank and initiate a chargeback. And you know, it's a process to prove that, but if that means you're getting your money back, you know, that's something you should really take advantage of. Again, finally here, train your employees. I want to switch back here now to the data and talk about the fraud report type. And I just want to talk about the top category here of reports that we received, online shopping. Now here is an example from another FTC case that my colleagues and I filed last year in federal court here in Akron. So during our investigation, we learned of numerous websites that looked like the official Clorox and Lysol websites. Consumers and businesses used an internet search engine like Google to look for Clorox and Lysol products. You'll all remember around this time last year, we were all looking for these kinds of products. And the customers for these scammers, they clicked on these websites which used the name Clorox and Lysol as part of their website addresses. You won't be shocked to find out that the real Clorox and the real Lysol did not authorize the use of their name or their logos. And then when the customers went to these websites, they would see flash sale deals for Clorox and Lysol products. And then they were required to pay via PayPal. The problem is the products never arrived, right? Many days came, many days passed, and the products just didn't arrive. What's the harm? Well, first is you pay for a product you didn't receive. And then when the customers tried to reverse the charges or tried to get refunds, the scammers would try to fight that. And then they would send fake delivery confirmation notices to PayPal. You know, some of them looked like they came from USPS, the postal office, and then they would send those fake confirmation, delivery confirmation, and then PayPal, as it turned out, didn't refund the money. Sometimes the scammers would also send products that the customers didn't order, right? We saw in our reports that the scammers sent socks, just one pair of socks, or sometimes they sent hairpins. And then we found out that they used this tactic, again, just to thwart the attempts to get refunds or chargebacks. So let's look at their website, some screenshots of their websites. This one, as you can see, it says, you know, there's a 3 days flash sale. If you order over $50, you'll receive free shipping. Here's another one from a fake Lysol website. Again, says there 3 days flash sale, free shipping over $50. And we'll talk about why that is in a little bit. And here's the last one I want to show, another fake Lysol website. At the time when we were investigating these scammers, you know, we saw these fake websites. We also checked the real Clorox and Lysol websites, and they really looked very similar. You know, these scammers really just misappropriated the logos, the pictures, and really the website design to make it look like these websites and make them look like the real Clorox and Lysol websites. It's very convincing. One thing we learned when we went to the website as we were, investigating the websites was their contact us page. They all looked very similar, right? Here, here's the second one, here's the third one. I'm not sure if you can see that clearly, but one of the biggest things here is they use the same address. They also use the same phone numbers, but they use the same address of where they're supposed to be located. So we looked up that address and it turns out it belongs to Little Tykes, which is a toy store in Hudson, Ohio. So after we filed our lawsuit, we got a court order, and that court order authorized us to shut down these websites. And we also froze their payment accounts. So now we're continuing to work to find the scammers who are behind these fake websites. But the biggest positive thing that has come out of this is, we have shut down these websites. We have shut down hundreds of websites. As part of that too, we have helped spread the word about this kind of scam, and hopefully people are not falling for them as much as they did. But let's see a couple of red flags here from this website. We already saw the flash sale for only 3 days. That's clearly in the front of the website. If you think about it, if you have a product that is in very high demand, would a company sell that product at a discount? Probably not, right? So for the scammers, this flash sale representation, that's really just designed to create a false sense of urgency. Again, that's a common red flag for scams. If you're unsure about a website, one easy way to do your due diligence is to check the contact us page. And I just showed you that here. And you want to do some research on the address or the phone numbers that's represented on there, right? Just type in that address on one of the search engines, maybe Google Maps. Find out whether that address is even real. Or if it exists, who really owns, or who to whom does that address really belong? Here are some tips that'll be familiar to you, right? Again, stop and ask yourself if the deal is too good to be true, especially when demand is so high, that should be a red flag. Verify who you're dealing with using trusted sources. I already talked about one of the ways you can do that, right? One way is to go on to the BBB website, for example, or you can contact any one of us here that you'll be hearing from today. Another way you can try to verify who you're dealing with is type the company name on a search engine, and then you can add scam or complaint with it, right? So for example, you can say Ponte Investments scam, and then read the results carefully. You want to read the results, if people are complaining about this company, or complaining about an address that you're searching for, or a phone number that you're searching for, those should all be red flags for you to stop. And at the very least, do some additional research before you continue with a transaction. Pay using a credit card if possible. And most importantly, train your employees. You want to make sure that your employees are following the protocol that you have set for them to follow. So I want to end my presentation here by offering you a very useful resource. Early on in the pandemic, the FTC set up this website, ftc.gov/coronavirus. It contains information on a lot of things related to COVID scams and schemes and what the FTC has done. and is continuing to do to protect consumers and small businesses. As you see here, there is a business tab. If you click on that, you'll see FTC guidance for businesses on how to get support, how to avoid scams, and how to follow appropriate practices in the marketplace. There is a resource tab where you can see examples of fake coronavirus related robocalls, like the one that I just played here this morning, as well as short videos and tips that you can use and hopefully share to others. You can also sign up for email updates, which, this will just provide you with timely information that we think you will find helpful. A lot of these alerts, as I mentioned earlier, are driven by the reports that we receive from consumers and small businesses who are experiencing these scams and schemes. And finally here, if you click on fraud report, that'll redirect you to this website, reportfraud.ftc.gov. And I can't express it enough how important it is that we hear from you, right? Again, like I said earlier, it's not just about helping to protect consumers because law enforcement are using these reports. These reports help us connect the dots of scammers, and hopefully we track them down and we stop them. But these reports also give us a foundation or a basis for when we should send out consumer alerts and business alerts. I'm going to stop there, and I want to thank you for your attention.